Hello everyone! It's time for another installment of my wedding dress series. I started off by making a corset and petticoat, so you should go watch those videos first. And now it's time for the actual dress, so I'm going to start with the skirt. Also, look at the absolutely beautiful day we're having today. Your lip is all messed up. So I got a little distracted yesterday because it is absolutely gorgeous out, and it is even nicer out today. So naturally, I took my water-loving dog for a swim in the stinky lake, and then she rolled in the dirt, so now she's all muddy. And of course she has to be on top of whatever I'm working on. I don't normally mind too much, but this is kind of important that it's very white and clean. Right, dog? This is not gonna go very well. I end up with Emmy paw prints on my skirt, but I didn't really mind. It is April 12th, which is less than 90 days from our wedding. Are you feeling stressed? Well, you will be by the end of this video, but the real question is, will it be worth it? Stick around to find out. I started with the satin, and I'm using a pattern by this creator based on Cinderella's wedding dress. I left some extra at the hem just in case. I merged the front two pattern pieces into one, which left me with 3 pattern pieces in total. I got the fabrics from bridalfabrics.com in the UK. This is their polyester luxury Duchess satin supreme in ivory, and this is their eco polyester organza that is made from recycled water bottles, also in ivory. These are without a doubt the nicest fabrics I have ever worked with. I meant to leave these to hang for a week to let the bias stretch, but it was more like several weeks. I started by pinning the satin skirt panels together. I hadn't quite given up on being perfect yet, but it's coming. Normally I wouldn't bother pinning all of this, but I am being extra precise. Before sewing, I used my mini vacuum to clean my sewing area. I left myself a note here, so I have to change my needle. I did a test strip earlier and found that a shorter stitch length looked better, so I will be sewing a lot slower than usual. And I finished these seams off with my serger. I ironed the seam allowances towards the back. This section seems a little boring, but I promise it gets more interesting once things start to go wrong. When cutting out the organza, I added some extra seam allowance so I could do French seams. So I pinned the skirt panels what would be wrong sides together, but there really isn't a wrong side to this fabric. I marked both the first and final stitching lines in a disappearing ink pen. I do actually have 2 of these. Emmy has other ideas of what I should be doing right now. I sewed on the first line, and I really want to say I ironed that bit, but that would be a lie. So I trimmed the seam allowance to under 1/2 inch, flipped it right sides together, and stitched on the final stitching line 1/2 inch away from the first. I think this is the most pins that I have ever put in one skirt, because usually I skip pinning quite a lot. French seams require French braids, and also some complaining about how long my hair is, so we're just gonna skip that part. And with a matching hairdo, I repeated that French seam process on the rest of the skirt. I have definitely been gardening, and I guess I didn't clean my nails well enough. Whoops. You are lucky that I love you. Also, please get off my wedding skirt. Emmy, shoo, shoo. Yep, off. Thank you. Really? You are pushing it, dog. She's technically not on the skirt. She's under it. I had left the center back open earlier, but I decided to close it now. I pressed the center back seam open and eventually used my clapper to keep it flat so I could save my hands. I also ironed the organza. Pressing the seam with a solid object helps it stay, especially since it's polyester. So the ink dissolves in air, but it also dissolves in water. I made a lining as well, but it's the exact same as the rest of it, so we're just gonna skip that. I took my cute little invisible zipper and ironed the teeth flat. If you set your iron correctly, this makes things much easier, aka not super hot. I basted the organza and the satin together at the waistband and hand basted the zipper in. Ironing the zipper before installing it helps because the key to invisible zippers is getting as close to this bend here as possible without hitting the zipper teeth. By ironing it open, which is in the instructions, if you read the instructions, it allows you to get even closer because they come kind of folded over. I'm gonna make a video about installing invisible zippers at some point. Hopefully. Between the zipper ironing, hand basting, and invisible zipper foot, I find them pretty easy now. I also have a lot of experience with them, so I practice quite a lot. So I'm cutting the lining in the same direction as the outside, but to do the zipper, I'm going to flip it over, stitch it along the zipper tape, and then it will have a nice finished edge on the inside. I forget where I saw that trick, but it's a good one. I got the skirt all pleated and pinned together, so all it is left is the waistband and also the hem. But that's gonna be another day. I added this secret on the waistband. It's our initials! I cut out the waistband and also some iron-on interfacing to stiffen it. I really love the secret detail in the waistband, even if it's secret because I forgot to tell anyone at the wedding about it. I was a little distracted. I folded the waistband over, covering all raw edges, and neatly hand-stitched it into place. I added 2 hooks and bars because the skirt is pretty heavy. That is not quite what I meant to do there. This one is backwards. Let me just fix that. The skirt is done! Minus the hem, of course, and all the embroidery. Okay, fine. The base skirt is done. I can't do the hem just yet. I need help for that. I really like this detail. When the skirt is on me, it is a bit smaller. The mannequin is kind of not squishy. And I am squishy, so it does actually fit me perfectly. I really like that detail. This weekend was my bridal shower, and I made a whole other dress for that for my mom's wedding dress. And some of my aunts and my mom helped me pin the hemline on my dress. I did my very first bandroll narrow hem, just on a sample, to see if I liked how that worked out. And last night I made 2 mock-ups of the bodice, so probably do some more mock-ups today and do some more math on exactly how much fabric the seam allowance on this takes. I also went kayaking yesterday, and my arms are really tired. I can't hold the camera up anymore. Okay, bye. I pinned 2 different lengths of the skirt. This part the hem is touching the ground, but this part it fans out a little bit. But on my right side it does not fan out, it is actually just touching the floor. I need to see if I can walk and dance with the 2 different skirt lengths and see which one works better. I'm just gonna jump in here and say that this was the most stressful part of the skirt, so excuse any weirdness. I was very stressed. Hey you! Busted! I am about to make the first cut on hemming the skirt. I'm gonna cut this in a couple of tries because I can't put fabric back on and I don't have time to do the whole thing again, so I really don't want to mess this up. This is approximately how long I want the skirt, so I'm gonna cut it down here first. I need it to be 0.75 inches longer than the final hem length. Don't worry about these marks, they disappear. After I finish pinning this line, this is where I think the hem needs to be. I'm gonna try it on for like the 8th time today, because I've already done this a whole bunch. I just can't put fabric back on, so I'm just being really careful about cutting. I've got it pinned right now where when I'm standing still, there's a little bit of a gap at the bottom, but if I pin it any lower, I will trip over it when I walk forward. There's the natural up and down movement when you're walking, and I want to be able to move in this thing, so I think this is going to be the final hem length. This is so stressful. Oh my gosh. This skirt is huge. This skirt is too big for this room. I was having some trouble deciding exactly where to cut the hem because it needs to be 3/4 of an inch longer than the final hem line. And I can't, it's tricky to do that on my own. So I figured out if I just stand on something that happens to be 3/4 of an inch tall, with my shoes on, that would be the actual height. This is really stressful, by the way. Cannot fix this if I cut it too short, so. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and trim the bottom hem a little bit. I was still wearing the skirt because it was such a hassle to put back on. I cut small strips off at a time until... Good. Time to hem. I only cut the front part there, so I smoothed the curve into the train, which made a huge mess. Time for my first bandroll hem! Bandroll is a bandroll is a woven waistband stiffener, but if you peel away some of the threads, it helps to create a narrow rolled hem. If you want to talk about the narrow rolled hem foot, go watch the petticoat video. I marked exactly the 3/8 of an inch hem with tape, but this is going to backfire really fast because my bobbin is not very full. I also want to make sure that I don't accidentally just gun it. Actually, this is how Patrick and I met. Well, kind of. We met at a car rally and he thought it was really cool that I raced. I have many unrelated hobbies. I have had nothing but trouble with the rolled hem foot. And I mean nothing but trouble, because I keep trying it and it keeps completely not working, so I don't know. I am about to start working on a recycled version of Cinderella's petticoat from the live action movie, and I am just looking at all of those ruffles and really not looking forward to hemming all of them. I really wish it would work, because that would make this a whole lot easier, but I've never gotten it to do anything. I've watched a ton of videos, and it's all in a tube of fabric and not a circle of fabric, which is what I'm working on, so I don't know. Can you hear how annoyed I am?
So there was actually enough thread for the whole hem, but I have to go around again for the band roll, so we'll be changing out the bobbin.
I ripped the extra threads from the band roll and then pressed the rolled hem into position like a good seamstress who wants her wedding dress to be perfect. It is worth mentioning that I tested my iron settings on some scraps before just ironing my wedding dress fabric. I tried it on while it was still pinned. Looking good. The lining is still peeking out underneath, but it is all an even length from the floor, so I get to do the next stitch now. The next stitch being the top stitch with folded band roll. And then comes the satisfying band roll removal. And less satisfying but equally important hem pressing. Some people aren't a fan of the top stitch look, but with the organza overlay and the embroidery, I wasn't too worried about that. I was worried about other things, like being a month from our wedding and not having a wearable dress yet. For the organza layer, I set my ivory serger up to do a narrow rolled hem, which left it super lettucey, you know, lettuce rolled hem look, but I was able to iron it out. I think this is what I'm gonna go with. It's easy, it's fast, as long as nothing goes wrong, everything will be fine. You'd think I'd have jinxed myself by saying that, but it was fine. This is what I meant by lettucey, where it gets stretched out, but ironing fixed it. Okay, organza hem. So all I have left to do on the hem is the lining, which means I have to convert that back to a regular serged edge. No, it is not yet nap time. That was basically the whole month after the wedding. Also, I forgot that I had bought a table to avoid this exact scenario. The plan is to serge directly to the satin layers hem length and then fold it up a ½ inch so it's ½ inch shorter than the outside layers, and then a nap. Or I guess bed. It's late. Pretty sure I have fabric dust in my eye. I didn't do anything fancy with this hem since it won't be seen. I guess I don't need this anymore. Oh. Okay, so I finished the hem last night, and I'm gonna start working on the hem embroidery today. And also, today is my birthday! And we have thunderstorms predicted all day, and air quality alerts, so we took an abbreviated morning walk, which didn't go very well, so I'm gonna be inside all day. Means I fetch this afternoon instead of a walk. I muted this for your ears because Emmy thinks that it doesn't work unless you bark at it constantly. I started my day with my traditional birthday breakfast of a piece of cake. Also, I scheduled a haircut this afternoon because this is driving me nuts. I spent my birthday digitizing and babysitting the embroidery machine. Don't mind the sweat. I was gardening and it's really hot outside. Last night I made a draft of the embroidery for the skirt, so I'm going to run it on a test piece of organza and see if I need to make any modifications. I stitched out the first repeating panel of the skirt embroidery, but I realize now that I did it on the wrong end because the next one's supposed to go there. It's fine. So I guess I'll stitch out panel number 2 and just attach them later. The plan here was to stitch the embroidery on a different piece of organza and then applique it to the skirt, like all the sequin lace I have bought before. But spoiler alert, this does not go well. But buying a magnetic hoop did go well, and I definitely recommend it unless you have a pacemaker. I lined the embroidery up with the first stitch out and hit go! Did this work?
Looks good.
Yes, it sure did, so I kept going. Remember earlier when I said Emmy's paw prints were all over my skirt? Ta-da! I digitized her actual paw print. I did some measuring last night, and I need approximately 3 times 60 inches of this, which is how wide the fabric is, so I need 3 panels. It's raining, and she wants to go for a walk, but it's raining, and you hate rain. Anyway, I need 3 panels of this, and I'm out of stabilizer, but it should be delivered by 10 p.m. tonight, so that's plenty of time for me to start designing the left-hand side, which is basically the same, but I can't mirror image it because these are letters. The stabilizer arrived last night, so I'm good to keep going on the skirt now. And this is my reception dress, and it is made from fiber optic fabric, but you're gonna have to come back and watch that another time because that's a different video. I used a water-soluble stabilizer, so all I had to do was rinse it off and hang to dry. My next applique step was to use my wood-burning tool to cut and seal the organza, and all of this happened outside because it's melting plastic and I like my lungs. Partway through this, I really didn't like how it was going, so I tried it out on tulle because I'd already scrapped a whole petticoat, so what's yards and yards of embroidery to me? I'm crying internally. I also tried cutting it really close and sealing it with a candle, which had the same results. Are you feeling stressed yet? Because I was kind of freaking out, which is why you won't see my face for a bit. Let's take a calming break from months in the future, when I realized I never explained the embroidery details. I made a repeating flower and vine motif, and our initials in a heart. I also digitized some things that we love, like Emmy's paw print, an ice skate, some Disney symbols, and the one that Patrick noticed during the ceremony, which is a metal detector coil. Also, a rubber ducky, because we have a rubber ducky war going. I alternated one initial heart and one symbol around the whole skirt. Also, I made a mini version for Emmy that says, "First love." Do you feel calmer now? Good. Let me ruin that again. I pinned the organza applique lace over the whole skirt, just trying to convince myself that it looked okay. But it just didn't. So a week and a half before my wedding day, I decided to embroider directly on the skirt. No room for redoing anything, trying to avoid any disasters. No finished veil or bodice yet. I just went for it. Are you stressed yet? How many yards of hem are there? I don't know. I should go find out. Ah yes, I restitched the 264 inches, or 22 feet, or 7.3 yards of hem embroidery in 9-inch sections that took 25 minutes each the week before my wedding. Also, I made the matching dress for Emmy because I'm crazy. At least one of us was having a good time. And stitched out the center back embroidery, and that is the most welcomed pop-up ever. I trimmed all of the jump threads on the craft table that I forgot about earlier. Time to remove the stabilizer again. I left it to dry with my smallest fan, while my biggest fan supervised. When it was dry, I trimmed even more jump threads, but... this is gonna be a while. It needed a good ironing after all of that stress, and I probably gained a few wrinkles too. It's done! I'm having a little trouble getting it all in one shot for obvious reasons, but the skirt is done! I just need to figure out the bustle, which is gonna be a mess because this is really heavy, but that is not today's problem. That is tomorrow's problem, because it's gorgeous outside, and I have a lake. See you guys later! I did a little test sample of what would be a over bustle loop, so I could hook this onto a button at my waistband, and it's really rather visible, so I think I'm gonna go with an under bustle. Right, Em? Also, it is the 4th of July, so I have on my red and white ex-lifeguard shirt and blue pants. I called this an under bustle, but later I learned it's actually called a French bustle. Bear with me here, it was 4 days before my wedding, and my dress was still not finished. I sewed 4 ribbons to the waistband to tie the skirt ribbons onto once I put them on. I'm also adding skirt hanging loops, because currently there's nothing. These have still not been tested because the skirt is really heavy. I am in a tent right now. I feel very silly. I'm pinning the under bustle ribbon, hopefully in the right spot, and I am really overheating, which is not good because I'm sitting in this in an air-conditioned house, not wearing the petticoat. You know, the petticoat is right here. So I'm gonna melt, but I'm gonna look really pretty while doing it. There are pins in this still. So there's definitely still gonna be some amount of train because it's a giant skirt. But this looks much more manageable than not bustled at all. I'm gonna go take this off and go jump in the lake because it's July 4th and stitch this up later. I was sitting here stitching along, but the fireworks have started and now I have a lap dog. Maybe I'll try later. Yay, 4th of July! I feel like what I'm about to do isn't going to show up very well on camera, so I'm going to explain it first because I have a little patch of the heavy satin to go on the bottom, and then we have the lining, the satin, and the organza. I will not be going through this top layer of organza. However, because there's a French seam here, there's plenty of material here for me to grab that will keep it all together and not show on the outside. Amy, are you proud of yourself? That's a sweatshirt and not a dog bed.
Being so careful right now.
The extra patch was to try and stabilize everything to the ribbon without it ripping out, because this was a very heavy skirt. I made 3 attachment points, but the one on the center back had 2 ribbons because it was the heaviest. The other 2 are on the side back seams, and technically at this point it was past midnight, which would be 3 days before my wedding, but I say 4 because I hadn't gone to bed yet. So, was all this stress worth it for one amazing skirt? Yes, it was. Would I do it again? I mean, probably, but at least I'd know what I was getting into and start way earlier. Stay tuned for the next installment, either the bodice or the veil, I have not decided yet. Bye!